Hello everyone, welcome to the Create Unity, Help Your Community group. This is week 3. Hello everyone, my name is Lady Kanar and I am an occupational therapy student at Kean University. Welcome to another video of the Create Unity, Help Your Community group. We are in our 3rd week and I'm so excited to present today's section. Today's section is called It is Time to Write and Apply. During this 25 minutes, we are going to be discussing the parts of a volunteer application, and at the end of the presentation, I will show you some volunteer application examples to apply what we previously covered. Before I start the information for today's section, I would like to recap on what we learned in week 2. Does anyone remember what we covered in week 2? Yes, you're right. Thank you. We covered transportation. Nicole introduced you guys to different methods of transportation that you may utilize to access to your volunteer side. Does anyone remember what those methods were? Great. In case you miss any method of transportation, I will list them for you. We have taxi services, buses, trains. We can even ask a family member or a friend to set up a driving schedule for us. Nicole introduced you guys to different apps like Uber and Lyft that can be used through a smartphone. These apps can be considered taxi services as well. I noticed that Nicole mentioned the importance of knowing the times for the buses and the trains. It is helpful information that can be applied for any situation to be able to get to places on time. Being on time to an interview or a meeting can show how professional you are, so keep that in mind. Now let's talk about week 3. The goal for today's section is to learn how to complete a volunteer application in order to keep pursuing a volunteer opportunity. Now let's go back a couple weeks ago. During week 1, we were searching our places to volunteer, where we learned about how the organization website looks like. You can always complete this application online through your organization website. You can access these applications in person or online. The information on your volunteer application should remain the same, whether it is an online or a paper format. I hope that all the information that we covered today will be helpful in your path of becoming volunteering. Volunteering is a way to give back to the community, and it also makes us feel better with ourselves. So let's get started with a presentation for week 3. All right, so let's start going over this PowerPoint. Let's begin this PowerPoint. I want you guys to get your minds ready for a discussion. So take a few seconds to read over and then think about these 3 questions that you see on the screen. How much do we already know about volunteering? In case you guys cannot answer any of these questions, don't worry about it. We are going to go over them together. Let's start defining volunteer applications. It is a document that is used to access applicant contact information and skills. As we see in the PowerPoint, profit and nonprofit organizations, we use these forms as part of their recruitment process. The forms are also used as part of their screening process to gather information about the applicant and to see how his skills or her skills suit for this position or role. The forms may seek information only about the applicant and how this information is related to his or her role as volunteer. So keep that in mind. The information should not ask you questions about your family, your friends. It should be used about you as an applicant. Now we are going to go over the general content that you may find in a volunteer application. The order of these questions may be slightly different from one application to another, and it depends on your volunteer side. So for example, they may start asking you for your contact information, like your name, your address, your phone number, your email, your date of birth, and your social security. The social security information can be used for background checks if needed. Usually, background checks are asked when you are looking for a volunteer opportunity where it involves working with children or the elderly population. They can also ask you for an emergency contact, like the name of the contact, the address, the phone number, and the relationship of the contact with you. For this, it is important to have someone in mind that is close to you and that you have constant contact with in case there is an emergency and the volunteer side needs to reach them. Parts of a volunteer application. The information about employment can be asked if this is related to your volunteer role. Volunteer experience information can be uploaded when looking for a volunteer opportunity. Some forms may or may not ask you for a volunteer experience. In the education section, make sure you always write the highest level of education. Languages information can make you stand out from other applicants. You can add if you are a beginner or a profession in any language. So as you can see on the PowerPoint, those will be the questions about work experience that they may ask you, like the name of the employer, the address, phone number, email address, and the day you start and the day you end your role in that position. And they can also may ask you for the reason of leaving. All right, let's go to the next slide. So what volunteer skills did I need? So for this activity, I want you guys to take out a piece of paper and a pencil, and we are going to write 3 skills that we think we need to be volunteers, and you have some examples right there on the screen. So let's do it. Is almost ready? All right, so this is the ones that I have. I have friendly team player, and I have respectful. This is the ones that I have. So now we are going to go over other skills that we may need when volunteer. So some volunteer work skills, they can be friendly, welcoming, team player, integrity, leadership, energetic social skills. When we are writing this section on the volunteer applications, make sure you are honest and these skills match with your personality, because you may need to show these skills in a volunteer experience, or you even may need to show these skills when you get to your interview. Other information you may find. Write in a statement explaining the reason why you want to volunteer. For this section, I will encourage you to read about the mission and the vision of your organization. So you can write about how you as a volunteer are going to contribute to this vision and their vision, and how your skills are going to help them to grow as a organization or company, depending what you're applying for. The time that you're available to work. Here's a tip. Check the time that the company or the volunteer site opens and closes, so they can match your time with theirs. They can request the applicant to attach a copy of his resume. This is not applicable for all the places, so I will encourage you to have it, but if you don't have it, it's okay. Let them know. The background check consent form, we already touched upon this in a couple of the slides before. They also may ask you for a reference letter from someone that can testify that you are a good fit for the position that you're applying. And it can be your employer, supervisor, or a professor, or even a family member that can talk about your skills. At the end of the form, make sure you sign and you date the form. Your application should not be your only screening tool. That's why you should have your resume if you have one, or maybe a cover letter. And your volunteer side may follow up with an interview that may identify both the negative and the positive attitudes by you. That's why it is important to be honest during this applications. So then they get to know you. As I mentioned it, they may follow up with a interview. For them, my classmate, Amber, will cover next week interviewing skills. Next slide. What not to do in a volunteer application. Do not disclose any medical conditions if it's not related with a position you're applying for. Make sure to check for any grammar errors in your application. Look at your application multiple times. Also have someone else reading the application for you before you submitted it. Sites may ask you to complete a skill checklist. Do not overselect the skills. We already talked about skills and how they should match our personality. Do not lie or alter any information on the application. Be honest, be yourself, and let them know to get to know who you are. Now let's take a look some volunteer applications. Okay, let me get a laser point. All right, so we're going to see how these three applications that we're going to look for are different from each other. So we have the contact information, the volunteer position information that we already explained, the educational work experience, and you can see this one asks you for, it's an education and work experience. So if you don't have it, you can put it here NA, and also ask you for your emergency contact that we already talked before. And here there is your check consent form, or sometimes the sort of a box where they will ask you about any specific information related to your criminal status. So here they are asking you if you have ever been convicted into a felony. So be honest, say yes if you have, no if you have not, and explain them the reason. They always give you a chance to explain, so be honest. And then you have the sign and the signature, and then we're going to see how this volunteer application is different from the ones that we are going to see in a minute. So let's see if we can find something different here that we did not talk about in the presentation. So we talk about what position you're applying for. So sometimes some of the organizations, they may have different roles for volunteers. So make sure you get to know what can they offer to you, and you can write in a specific volunteer position you are looking for, maybe for a specific department. If maybe they do some sort of like giving gifts for kids during Christmas. So what do you want to do? You want to giving the gifts to the kids, you want to wrap the gift for the kids, you want to collect the gift. So there will be different roles that they may have for you. So you can specify here what you really want to do there. Then we have this other volunteer form. Again, we have our contact information, emergency contact. So here they ask you for 2 phone numbers. You don't need 2. You just put whichever phone number is better for them to be rich. Then volunteer opportunities. So this place have different volunteer opportunities like home delivery meals, senior center meals, senior pals, special projects. So do not overselect, because if you overselect places, it will be hard for the recruiter to place you in what setting works better for you. So maybe I will check 1 or 2 options here. And then the time that you are looking for. And here, if we go back to week 2 about transportation, you can check all the locations that your volunteer site offer you and which one will be more convenient for you. So here you can specify what location will work better for you. Then here's something different that we did not see in the other volunteer application, that is about how do you hear about them. So maybe if someone referred you to the place, or if you hear from them through their website, or maybe a flyer, you can add it here. And employment experience, describe briefly. So you can maybe have the occupation you had it before. So you don't need to write the name of your employer. the address, the email, choose maybe what you did. Like I would put here, student at Kean University. That's what I will write there. And describe any skills, training, hobbies, or interests. So we did not see this in the other ones, but here maybe pick one skill and one hobby that you can put here, like friendly and I love animals. And then we have another yes or no question. This one is regardless to if you have ever been convicted or plea for any offense other than traffic violations. So yes or not, and describing for why. And this is something different. So here we did not see anything about attach a resume or reference letters, but here we do. You have 1, 2, 3 references. If you don't have 3 references, it's okay. You maybe will have 1 or will have 2. Don't feel discouraged. Use add other reference you have. And if you have more than 3, I will recommend you to use write 3. Do not maybe give them 5 or 6 references. Use write what they are looking for. So this is the last one. So as you can see, this 3 applications, they start asking you for contact information, emergency contact. They ask you some question about work experience, or what are you looking for. So their format may change, but the common information that we covered before, it isn't all these ones. So for the last one, they start asking you for what position are you looking for. Again, make sure you know your organization, make sure you know what department you want to be part of it, and make sure what specific role you're looking for. Then your contact information, and then your previous volunteer experience, your occupation, what you used to do, what you do, and then other information that will help us make a good match. So here you can put your interested, like again, it will be easier for the recruiter if you are very specific in this section, what you really want to do. If you want to do kids, or if you want to work with animals, or if you want to work with other adults. So be very specific here. Do not write in general, or do not write anything, because it will be really hard for the recruitment process for placement purposes. So languages spoken. So again, you can write here all the languages you speak, and if you're a proficient or if you're a beginner. And this is something different that we did not see in other applications, but it is in there. And again, we saw this in the other ones too, like what times are you available to work and what days are you available to work. And here they ask you about your driver's license. So you can ask this to your volunteer site, how relevant it is for this particular role position to have a driver's license. And there's another question about if you have ever been convicted. Yes or no, explain why, do not lie, do not alter any information, just be honest. And this is a question that we did not see in the other ones. It is, do you have any physical condition that may limit your abilities? Yes or no? And if yes, describe. So I will recommend you to first read the role of the position you're looking for, like what will be your duties, and see if they will actually affect, if your physical condition will affect your performance. And if now, we'll say no. And again, you do not need to disclose any medical condition if you don't feel like you want to, but you always make sure you do not put yourself on risk. And you can ask someone in the volunteer side to see what physical conditions can limit the abilities of performing the particular job or duty as a volunteer. So before we finish this section, I would like to recap on what we did today. So this will be a quick summary of the main points, as well as some tips that we covered together. So let's go over the parts of the application. So we have contact information, emergency contact information, list personal social skills. So for this one, I want to clarify with you guys. The skills, I put personal and social skills because I thought they kind of related, but for this particular one, write the skills that are going to be needed for that job or that volunteer that you are looking for. And then any previous volunteer experience, educational languages, and certifications is where the parts. And I put list personal social skills because those names may be interchangeable in some applications. They will say list your skills, but the skills that they are looking for are those work skills or volunteer skills needed for your role as volunteer. So keep that in mind. And then some tips: do not lie or alter any information in the application. So be honest. It is really important to be honest and show them who you really are. Know your organization, know what they do, know what your duties will be as a volunteer in that company or organization. They may ask you to complete a skills checklist. Do not overselect. Again, match those work or volunteer skills with your personality. Have your resume and references ready in case you need them. As we see, 1 out of 3 volunteer applications ask you for the references, the other ones did not. And you can always ask your volunteer side if the volunteer application should be enough, or if they will let you know if they need anything else. Now, let's take a minute to read those questions on the screen to discuss how the information that we learned today can be applicable to other settings. For the first one, I will say yes. After choosing a place to volunteer and when learning if the place is accessible for you, a volunteer application is the opportunity for the organization to get to know you. Through your application, you are letting them know who you are, who your interests are, and your skills, and your desire of being part of the team. And of course, the content that we covered today, you may see in other applications. For example, when you are applying to get a job or accepted in a school program. These tips that I mentioned in the presentation on how to complete a volunteer application can be used for any other type of applications that you're applying for. And some of the skills that we cover today can be applicable in our daily life to improve the way we communicate with others. These skills can be used when applying for work or maybe to get into a school. This presentation is almost getting to this end. As I mentioned previously, after you submit your application, whether you do it online or in person, it can be followed up by an interview. Next week, my classmate Amber will be covering some interviewing skills that you can utilize during this process of the application. So let's recap what we haven't done so far in the Create Unity Help You community group. During week 1, we learned about what places we want to volunteer and we learned how to search for them on the internet. During week 2, we learned about different methods of transportation that we can utilize to access to our volunteer site. In today's sections, we learned about how to complete and how to identify the parts of a volunteer application. So next week, Amber are going to be covering some interviewing skills that may be the next step for you to becoming a volunteer. I hope you guys are learning the information you guys need to become volunteers. And thank you again for watching, and it was such a nice experience to create this video for you. And again, thanks for your interest in becoming volunteers, and see you next week. Bye.